always.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FCI Live 2025. This is Thursday, our fourth day in the first week. So, we're wrapping up the first week. It's a 2 week series of our free online conference for startup food co-op cooperators. And of course, all food cooperators are welcome, but the content is aimed at the needs of startup food co-ops. This is Radical Times, Radical Origins with Patrice Lockhart Anthony of Black Soil Media. And I'm going to be turning it over to her in just a second. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to our FCI Live champion sponsors this year. For the first time ever, we've had three of them, National Co-op Grocers, Dot Co-op, and Colluminate, who are all really throwing in and supporting to make sure that this series is possible for all of us. Thank you so much for your support of the startup movement. So if you've ever been in a session before with Patrice, you know the treat that you're in for. I am going to be running her slides, but I'm going to turn this over to her. No one can explain better than Patrice what this topic is all about. So I'm not even going to try and sum it up, but I will say that a lot of people have asked to have these very conversations, and Patrice reached out to me as soon as we're like, okay, it's time to start putting together content for up and coming or for FCI Live 2025, and she immediately tapped into that big word, the zeitgeist, that feeling that we're all having about the conversations that we really are desiring to have here in 2025 about cooperation and its role in the world right now. And that's pretty classically Patrice. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrice. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Give me your hands or something so I know you're here and into what we're doing here today. Thank you very much. Pinch out for a bigger view. Okay, I don't have my people on my screen. I have you, JQ, but I don't have my people.
If you go to, can you see the view option?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay,
Oops.
if you click on that and go to gallery, you shall be able to see at least you can't see everyone at once, but you can see a large smattering of who's here.
I had it early. Would you? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna keep that on later. There we go.
Got it? Okay. I'm
So,
going to be using speaker view, so the people who watch the video later
okay,
get to see you.
I'm going. I'm going to be. I'm going to be doing this, but I'm going to try to save 10 minutes at the end. JQ, if you let me know when it's 15 minutes until the end,
Yeah.
I'll use that as my cue. I like to be able to do a Q&A with my participants to help out, and we'll be doing an announcement also about part two. But we're going to start this out with me talking about myself. Uh, here's the thing. Uh, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and part of what makes me sick and tired is the notion of cooperatives, which are supposed to be radical, not just supposed to be, are. They are radical endeavors to push a set and a reset on justice and equity. It doesn't matter what kind of justice and equity. Justice when it's around race, when it's around food, when it's around misogyny, justice and equity. And I don't have an adequate way to measure just how pissed off it makes me when food co-ops in particular open up and become just regular old grocery stores. There's work we're supposed to be doing. There's work we're meant to be doing. And it is my perspective that we're not doing it the way we ought to be doing it, could be doing it, should be doing it. And since I don't know if enough of you know it, I tend to do my cooperative work around planting the seeds in white-led co-ops because, as far as I'm concerned, while I do not see you guys as the demon, I do see that many of you are far too comfortable in the white spaces. and you're not taking the time to do the work that allows you to do the radical work of co-ops, or to be the kind of white leaders that are simply leaders and reaching out to communities, to individuals, to other co-ops that are led by Black, if they're Black-led co-ops, Latino-led co-ops, or if they're Asian-led co-ops, should be offering your assistance in somehow, because you've had the privilege all these centuries. And it's time to turn that. That said, can you give me the next slide, please? Okay. I'm just going to read this off to you real quick. American cooperative practices have radical beginnings. These beginnings are not by nature radical. They are radicalized because a country that espouses greed and self over sharing and collaboration, sacrificing justice and equity for the 99%. The point of this workshop, and part 1 and 2, is to seek out ways in which we will work together to benefit the 99%. And if that makes it sound like I don't care about the 1%, that's pretty damn close to the truth. Next slide, please. Quote, sorry about the Johnny Appleseed. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Alice Walker. That is a problem in our community, white, Black, or otherwise, but particularly it's a problem in white groupings, because you've been centered for power and privilege and space. To feel helpless and hopeless and not use that power and privilege and space for those who don't have power, privilege, and space it's almost offensive to me. But what I really think is happening is that you've been conditioned, just like everybody else, to think you don't have power, because the 1% wants everyone to believe that. But the truth is, you do have it. And you need to start using it to speak truth to power. Next slide, please. Bullet points for ways in which you might seek to use your power, influence, voice for yourself and others, for the co-op, for the community, for collaboration. First, seek out businesses and products owned by, led by, created by BIPOC in both immediate communities and beyond. For those who do not know what BIPOC stands for, it is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Second, seek out BIPOC-led food co-ops and ask how you may be of assistance. Money, time, listening, verbal, written, physical support. You know, when it comes time for a food co-op to open, there's a mess of stuff to get ready for that move in and that opening. Hell, if you have to lead a chain of people standing together, actually in here in Ithaca and Green Star, that's precisely how we opened the co-op at first. Is there weren't a bunch of cars and stuff. You had trucks that came to a certain point, and we had a line of people, and you were just passing along the packages going in to the store. You can do that. There are all kinds of ways to make things happen in partnership. Next, seek out BIPOC-led food cooperatives when you need help, understanding a problem or a situation, and listen well and ask questions when and if you don't understand. Don't assume knowledge you don't have. I say that because I've worked with a lot of white companies and boards on things like this, and there's an assumption uh, often in white men that they simply know stuff. Interestingly, in surveys and studies, it has been shown that white males top the groups that will say they know stuff even when they don't. For instance, to get a job, do you have this skill set? Do you know how to do this? White males top the list of people who will just say yes and will assume that they can just learn it on the job or something. Whereas women are the lowest on the list. They'll just say, be honest and say, no, they don't know, and thus not get the job. And the males who say that they could do it or that they know how to do it get the job, and then they discovered on the job that they can't do it. So I want you guys to be willing to listen and ask questions. Don't assume that you know. Don't argue against what you're being advised or told. Ask questions about it, but it's not a debate. Next, use your newsletters and connections to raise awareness. So you don't have to have, because I get this a lot too. Well, we don't have any people of color in our communities. You know, the first question for that is you need to ask yourself why that is. And the next question is this: how can we use what we have, our tools and resources, to help other co-ops, to help oppressed people, to help people who can't find their voices, people whose voices are suppressed? How can we use our newsletters, our co-ops, our connections, our privilege to put the word out there, to put money out there, to put effort out there so that we can change the narrative and then change the reality? Next slide, please. Redirection of false narratives. Go to your meetings and events and conferences and speak truth to power. It's not just that you went to a great workshop and you learned something great, but then you go home and nobody ever knows about what you did or what you learned because you're not sharing it out. It's something you're sort of keeping to yourself, and you're either shy about sharing it out, or you're worried about rejection, or you're worried about being shut down. Stop worrying about those types of things. I'm not saying those things don't happen. I'm saying they keep happening because we're not stepping up against it. So go to your meetings and events and conferences and start speaking truth to power. Put in the work to become collaborators, co-conspirators, allies. Remember that if the cooperative work you do only benefits your co-op or only people with comfortable incomes, you don't understand the real work of either co-ops or radicals. Know the truth, acknowledge the truth, insist upon the truth. Next slide, please. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. James Baldwin. Stop allowing worry and fear, whether it's of rejection or anything else, quite frankly. I'm not saying fear isn't real. I'm saying that courage and what lies on the other side can only be attained when you go through the fear. So let's find ways to work through the fear and get done what must be done if we really want what we say we want. Next slide, please. Resist, reset, restore. These are the things that have to happen if real healing is going to take place. I take a lot of heat from some people because of the messages that I believe in, that I deliver. I don't believe we're all meant to be on divergent paths. I just don't believe that. But even if I did, and here's my example. When Black folks in America go on divergent paths from 200 years ago to now, and those divergent paths are things that racist whites and whites who want to be comfortable more than they want to heal and coexist say that they want us to do because it's just less trouble. Abraham Lincoln wanted us to go away. He didn't free us because he thought we were equal. He just thought it could help end the problem. And when we decide to do what we can and move away so that our communities prosper, and it happens to also be what these people have advocated for, instead of being happy about it, they come and burn us down and burn us out. They kill us, they bomb us, they rape us, they hang us. Even when we go to live a separate life, create separate communities. It's not BIPOC folks who have to do the most healing. It's white Americans. That's where the problem exists. And so if you don't know your history, if you don't get back in touch with who you are, your ethnicity, your culture, your languages, if you don't remember that you existed before whiteness, and if you don't learn the history of whiteness in general and American whiteness specifically, you're going to keep doing all this stuff. You're going to keep wanting to be comfortable rather than deal with the discomfort of facing the realities of racism or misogyny or ableism, otherism. You're going to keep allowing others to persecute LGBTQ folks instead of putting your foot down and speaking up when someone tells what they think is a funny joke. It's time to go beyond that. And the first step is to resist in yourself the urges to stay comfortable. And then it is to resist the people who are trying to condition you into that. And it is to resist the policies that will make it easier to stay there. It is to resist any movement that leads towards death, disease, and the end of us as a group of people who could come together and heal. It's only impossible as long as you believe it to be impossible. And that does not mean it's going to happen in your lifetime. Your job may be to plant the seed, not live to see the beauty of the tree fully grown. That may not be for you. It would be wonderful to see it, but I'm 65, so I'm thinking I'm going to be part of the planting of the seeds, and I may see some of the growth of the tree, some of the growth of the forest, I don't know if I'm going to be around to see the entire picture of what we look like as a healed people. Resetting mission and values. Whatever mission statement, whatever values you think you have, I'm going to encourage you to look at them again and ask yourself if you're really living them and if your co-op is really living them. And here's the thing, why you as an individual? Because it is a lie that you can separate the personal from the professional. Who you are as a person is precisely who you take into the workplace. Even if you never utter a word of what you think will set other people off, it shows up. Whatever's inside is going to show up on the outside one way or another. It'll be a micro expression. It'll be a tone of voice that you don't even know is happening. It will be in that you're a supervisor and you're having a moment with one of the people you supervise, and then it becomes review time. It'll show up in that review. You think it won't, but it will. So do a check on your mission and values and find out if you and your co-op and your co-op's people are living those mission and values. And if your mission and values don't show what you think is needed in these radical times, then do the work to change them. Restore profitability and purposeful community. What do I mean by that? Well, it's clear what I mean by restore profitability. Co-ops, some are doing really well, but oftentimes when they're doing really well, it's because they've given in to doing the normal grocery thing. And other times they're doing really well because they get it. But a lot of co-ops aren't doing that well. And we think that we need to do things more like regular corporate grocery stores in order to get that profitability back. That's not necessarily true. What you need to do, what we need to do, is to remember that we need to think differently. Y'all remember when you worked with kaleidoscopes as children, and when you held it up, when you looked through it, you saw these images, beautiful or not, you saw these images, but all you had to do to change your perspective was turn. You just turn that lens and you got a whole new perspective. You need to do that in order to start thinking about other ways to be profitable. And here are some of those ways that you can. And in doing so, you also reinvest in creating purposeful community. Next slide, please. This is an article. You guys should actually copy that down, but of course you're going to get this this keynote PowerPoint. So it'll be there, but this is a very interesting story. It started, the guy who wrote it started because he was concerned about how shoplifting and surveillance and how the people who were caught shoplifting were treated. And so he went back to look through the history and discovered some interesting stories. It turns out, I did not know this, that grocery stores, corporate grocery stores, and politics were bedfellows. And started treating co-ops, earlier co-ops, 30s, 40s, 50s, as anti-socialists. As anti-capital businesses that were trying to do in grocery stores. In other words, corporations. And it's a very, very interesting read. So I encourage you to do that. Next slide, please. Can you see, does that open up into a video? If we can watch it, it would be great. Otherwise, when you get this, I would encourage you to watch it.
Check this out. I'm going to show you.
We're going to get an ad first.
Holmes spoke out about breaking generational racism among his folks. Check it out.
I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret about white people. Every single white person knows somebody who is racist. Racist towards black people, racist towards Spanish people. We all know somebody. It might be our family member, it might be a distant relative,
Okay.
it might be a coworker, it might be
I'm not able to make it work. It's only
okay. I know we can hear it, but we can't see it. So I'm going to, rather than spend the time to just listen to it, if you guys can, after this, click that link when you get the keynote, click on the link and watch that video. I think it's what this gentleman has to say is important. In the meantime, let's go to the next slide.
I kind of screwed things up. I'm going to get restarted here. Just take a second.
It's okay. You guys drop in the chat if you're really hearing this right now. If you understand where I'm going with this.
Well, so we just try there.
Oh, thank you. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis. And the next one I think is also from Angela. Radical simply means grasping things at the root. Angela Davis. This is where I've been encouraging you throughout this, everyone who's in this workshop, not just whites, but primarily whites. I'm encouraging us all to work together. I'm encouraging whites to do a big chunk of work because white Americans are the ones who've done the least amount of work in this area. But how to go about it? What are we trying to say and do and think and feel, and where to begin? And that seems to be the biggest problem for people, because you want to just sort of grab a book off the shelf or something and get started. I want to draw people to what Angela Davis is saying here. Radical simply means grasping things at the root. The root. And if you want to know the root of racism, the root of misogyny, the roots of anti-LGBTQIA, if you want to know the roots of ableism, then you have to do the work. You go back to the beginning. You go back and you look at history. You don't look at something that's happening now. Look at someone who's upset by what's happening now and who is saying that there's a problem with race or misogyny. Say, well, that stuff was a long time ago. You know how we have kids who are born today who look like a grandmother, a great grandmother, a great great grandmother, or father? We pass things along, and it's not just through the genes, although there is a case to be made for epigenetics. When a family talks negatively about race, that goes into their children. And those children grow up hearing it from preachers and teachers and friends from the neighbor's house. And then they grow up and they pass it along to their kids. And it keeps going and going. That's generational hate. And the reason you know it's real and you know it's working is because of the question I'm about to ask. And I'm using race as the backdrop. What exactly is white rage? And what are white people so angry about when it comes to race? Historically, even now in the White House, whiteness is put out as supreme, as better, more than, blah, blah, blah. If this is all true, and everyone else who is not white is lesser than, why all the rage? That's just a question I would like people to think about and attempt to answer with themselves, with others, sitting around coffee. Next slide, please. It's an important question to ask. From Toni Morrison, we die. That may be the meaning of life, but we do language. That may be the measure of our lives. Now, she's writing this, she's saying this about people who write, but it doesn't really matter what you do. We die. That may be the meaning of life, but we do whatever. And that may be how we measure our lives. How are you measuring your life? How are you measuring the work and the life of your co-op? What is the work that's being done? Who are you benefiting? Who are you hurting? Can you do more? Can you be a contributing factor to the healing of the dreadful amount of harm and hurt and pain that exists in this country? And because we are startup food co-ops, you have a chance to start from the beginning. Food and drink are healing sources. Healing. So find ways to work with others. If there are people, and we know that there are, who have suffered from the way this country has run its quote unquote democracy. We know it's not a real democracy, but it can be bettered. We can work that. We know it's not a real one. And what I mean when I say that is you can't, before you revolt against England, talking about give me liberty or give me death. You can't say something like that and expect to be taken seriously when you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in chains, at the time you're crying out for that. You cannot have your first president, the writers of your first documents, your legislators, your representatives, and your Supreme Court judges all either have slaves or support the practice of slavery and think they're going to establish policies and laws and rules that support justice and equity. You cannot think that this democracy formed rightly when that was its beginning. And you cannot think that at some point we just got over it all and started acting rightly. There is work for us to do, and it must be done. Many of the seeds have already been planted, but they've been planted by people who are either long gone or people in too few numbers now. We have work to do. And I am saying to the white people in this workshop, let's get serious. Let's get real. And let's push through your fear and start speaking truth to power, start doing the work of reading the books, of talking to people, of creating partnerships, and let's start healing the harm. And I want to give you some numbers, by the way, because and the numbers I'm going to give you are for 2024 Black dollars and 2024 Asian American dollars spent on groceries. For Black Americans, $101.9 billion in 2024 on grocery items. Asian Americans, $464 billion. Now, as a group, Asian Americans tend to make more than other quote unquote minority groups. But I want you to pay attention to those numbers because we're food co-ops, which means people do their grocery shopping in our stores. And if we want co-ops to be more important, to leave an impression, to do the good work, then we also need more people shopping in our stores, becoming members of our co-ops. And I'm making the point that the money is out there. You're not chasing a non-existent customer. You're ignoring them. And if you need me to say that again, I will. Does anyone need me to say that again? You're not chasing a non-existent customer or community member. You're ignoring them. And both of those groups that I mentioned actually happen to place a premium on healthy and organic foods. I know we hear lots of stories about all the junk that people buy. That's not a joke. It is happening. But they want better. So let's get busy. Next slide, please.
I'll also let you know you're at 15-minute warning point. You want
Thank you. Because there's the end. I want you guys to have that so that you can get in touch with me if you need to. Also, let's have a Q&A. We're going to have it for 10 or 11 minutes. And then JQ is going to do the closeout. And I just want to say now, but even before we do the Q&A, blessings on you all. Thank you so much for attending this workshop. I always appreciate having you guys with me and listening to me drop truths.
Do you want, Patrice, before we start the Q&A, you had mentioned wanting to mention the part 2? Do you want me to do that?
Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
So Patrice said this is going to be a 2-part series, and we kind of have a tradition that each speaker is only asked to present once at FCI Live. So if you would like to access part 2, there's going to be a second session on this, going deeper, April 24th, that's going to be offered by Black Soil Media. Please put your email in the chat. If you put your email in the chat, I will give it to Patrice and Black Soil Media, and they will reach out to you and let you know about the opportunity for part 2 for this session. And now we can go back to the Q&A. I just wanted to put that out there now, is go ahead and throw your emails in the chat. We don't give out your information without your permission. So that's you giving me permission to share your information with Black Soil Media so they can invite you to part 2.
And I just want you to know that part 2 is a much, much more interactive piece. Part 2 is a great big old group of us on Zoom getting together and talking through. We're going to have 3 situations to discuss. And we're going to give plenty of time to each of those. And then we're going to do a short Q&A after each one. And then at the end, we're going to speak very openly and honestly throughout the whole thing, we're going to speak very openly and honestly with each other. Okay? But let's start the Q&A now. If you can take everyone off of mute, that would be great. But you'll have to use your hands, the little hand symbol.
No one's on forced mute. So what she's saying is that you can use your hand symbol, and then she calls and you just go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah. So they can unmute themselves. They always could. I was just asking them not to.
Okay. And let me see if I can do that now. If it will let me. Oops. There we go. Full screen. It's already at full screen. Nope, I don't know why, but it's not allowing me.
I'll put the slide back up so people can folks can get started on the Q&A with you, and I'll put that slide with your contact back up.
Okay. So if people will put your hand symbols up if you have a question, and then JQ will see it and call folks out and we can chat.
First, I was getting that done. Now I can look for hands. Okay. People ask for that again. And also feel free, if you're like, I don't want to unmute, feel free to put your comment or your comment, thought, question in the chat to get the conversation started. But if you would like to unmute, Patrice welcomes that. And please just put up your hands and I'll give a call.
Oops, chat.
Evan, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrice, very much. Your talks are always very dynamite. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
But I have a question, and that is,
okay.
You mentioned you do work with groups, in particular co-ops, with regard to these subjects. And I'm just wondering if you work with any of them long enough to see meaningful evolution and what that looks like.
Okay. The longest, that long work I did with corporations, not co-ops. And I saw meaningful change. For the most part, what I ended up with were CEOs who wanted to check a box. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now with co-ops, particularly Black-led co-ops, they're not calling you in to help and spend their money unless they're serious. The white-led co-ops I have worked with, the ones I have worked with the most, there were two who really kicked ass. I cannot tell you where they are right now on their work. A lot of time has passed. I should check in with them. the 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 biggest problem that I have noted in the ability to stay rooted in the work is dollars. And what I mean when I say that is, capitalism is a conditioning agent, and it's so worked through our government system, our education system. Oh, there you are. It's so much a part of that when people start to have, anytime there's a problem and they start cutting, they start thinking, what do you cut? What do you cut? What do you get rid of? And the things that are gotten rid of, I can tell you this even from board meetings. DEI gets cut even as a topic on the board agenda. It's like, well, we can do that later when we have time. And if you are resistant to feeling guilty or your comfort levels, you don't stick with it, because if it's someone or a book or a person that's telling you the truth, it's hard. It's very hard. It's hard for anyone to read that kind of stuff, to listen to that kind of stuff. But it shouldn't be something that stops you. I want to know, what's the root of your question?
Well, yeah, you've answered it pretty well. I just, it's curious as to how organizations, how groups, how co-ops do change if they're listening to you and if they are getting it. That was just basically just it.
Yeah, I think there are ways of listening where we need to change how we do it. Just like we need to change what we think of as a mission and how we see values. And because let's tell the truth, most of us, when we come up with mission statements and vision statements and values, we sort of come up with them so that they sound really neat and clever. But tell me, how many of your members can tell you what the cooperative principles are, what their individual co-op's values or mission is? So that's the kind of work that we need to do, is making those things important, again, making them relevant to the people that we're talking to. And that requires work where we sit down and really have conversations with each other so that we're hearing each other's voices and we really see each other, and then frame the work around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, anytime. Anyone else have a question? Okay, are we sure? Okay, I'm not looking at there we go. Chat.
Feel free to unmute. I've checked the chat. I know some of you were saying things all along through the session, agreeing with things, shouting things out. So, and feel free to unmute and share that too. If something resonated with you, that's also. Peggy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just love, thank you, Patrice. And I just love what you opened with, was that, white people have the power, but we feel so helpless and hopeless. And that is, bam. That's really provocative and helpful for me because I do feel like, oh, that whole fragility thing, or fear and discomfort, and that's just a piece of reality that
Yes.
I have the power, and that other stuff is just some BS. So thank you for that.
You are welcome. Call me anytime. I'll give you more. Fragility is another side of fear. You wouldn't feel so fragile if you weren't fearful of what was coming. I simply encourage people, it's not so simple, really. I know that. I encourage people to work through that, because you will never find your way to the other side of alignment and healing unless you push through the fear and the fragility. And if you choose to stay in that fear and fragility, I really believe you'll regret it. You'll miss out on a lot. Anybody else? It doesn't have to be a question. Bring up something that you think we should be talking about, or that you think I missed in this that you want to hear about.
Or again, something that resonated with you and just felt good to hear. Because some of what I see here is people who are just shouting out, "Oh, you could just tell them what you said it." Yes, like thank you for saying that.
Yeah, Patrice, thank you. This was great. And I wonder, I missed the first few minutes, so I don't know if you touched on this. But I wonder if you have any context for people who are addressing these challenges and conversations in the midst of our current administration, right? Yeah. And so it's continuing the conversation, continuing to share your mission and values that are at the core of, why you started, especially for Black-led co-ops, and pushing through in this kind of administration. You kind of touched on it when you mentioned the founding fathers, but so yes, I was one of those people in the chat, like, yes.
The work that Black-led co-ops are doing, and that LGBTQ and Latinx are doing, some of the co-ops that I've spoken with people in, it's no joke. And there are all kinds of reasons to sort of throw up your hands. And just so, I'm just tired. But I remember out of James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, of his essays and things are in there. And towards the end of the book, he mentions that there is no more intimate relationship in America than that between Black people and white people. Because of the way slavery was set up and was allowed to exist, we had very intimate relationships between being raped, enslaved, impregnated, raising their children, having to, excuse me a moment, and having to, we get pregnant, we give birth, and then you sell our babies away and then force us to use our breast milk to feed your babies. We're tired. We've carried all of that through, but the work we know is very essential. So we have to start getting creative about the way that we address that exhaustion. And sometimes that's not easy. So we have to force it. And I think one of the ways you do that is to pull together, to come, not just pull together, but come together. You figure out who you believe can contribute to that conversation. And you start talking over Zoom, in your homes, and you start thinking about ways to partner with each other so that you can, excuse me, Carol? Okay, so you figure out ways to partner with each other, to stand strong beside each other, to really hear each other's voices and what's needed. I think sometimes we just get so loud and or so silent. In exhaustion, there's silence, and in rage, there are loud voices. And we need to find that middle ground where we're partnering with each other and hearing each other and seeing each other and discovering through our voices what we can do differently. Black women, for instance. Too many of us feel like we're in it by ourselves. Too many of us are checking in maybe with women who are local to us, but not checking in outside of Ithaca, for instance. Checking in, Ithacan Black women should be checking in with Brooklyn Black women. They should be checking in with Los Angeles Black women. They should be checking in with North Carolina Black. You know what I'm saying? It should be this effort where we're constantly reaching out and creating connections to each other and doing this work and embracing each other and further strengthening the bonds and the links so that they cannot be broken. I don't know if that makes sense, but that is a part of what I have to offer.
I apologize, Patrice, but we are past wrap-up time. So
I'm sorry.
You're okay. I didn't want to interrupt that thought. But I do want to wrap us up. And instead of like formally doing a big wrap up and pulling up the slides, I'm just gonna say thank you to Patrice for helping us usher out our first week of FCI Live with an incredible session. And there's a whole nother week coming. So you'll be getting an email tomorrow with all the links to next week's sessions, and we hope you'll join us for a bunch of those as well. I am about to send out the email with Patrice's slides and details and contact information. If you dropped your email in the chat, I will be getting it to Patrice the next 24 hours. That'll all be taken care of. And we have sent you a survey. I know it's been a long week and it feels like Friday and it's Thursday, but the survey we just sent you about this session only takes 2 minutes. And if you could fill it out for us, it lets us know what kind of content you need, what works for you, and it helps us keep this free for real. You filling out that 2-minute survey helps us keep this works free because we need to let our sponsors and our grantors know that we are effectively addressing what you guys need. And then we can keep the series free. So if you guys could just fill that out. Also, Patrice loves to hear the feedback. It's a way to pay her back and thank her. So, because she gets to read all that feedback. So please do.
Even if it's about suggestions on how to do better or differently, let me know.
And all your answers are anonymous, so you can even share that and be nervous and share what you think could have been more or different as with us, with FCI Live, or with this particular session. So we appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up if anyone needs to get going. And I think if you want, it's up to you, Patrice. I can make you host. I am overdue for another meeting, but I can make you host if you want to stay for a few more minutes if anyone wants to continue the combo.
I can if there are people who want to stay and do that. No pressure. So I can give another 15 minutes. I have a hard stop at 4:15.
Well, what I'll do is I have made you host. And what I
Okay.
usually do is I leave an open space and see if anyone talks. Sometimes we all just stay
Okay.
to see what everyone else is going to say. And if that's and if that's the case, then you can wrap it up in a minute and say goodbye to everyone. But
All right.
I didn't want to cut you off in case you were still in the flow, but I do have to leave the space, so I have made
All
you.
right. Thank you as usual.
Thanks, everyone.